Been, man.
Pretty good. Like mostly relaxing today.
Sundays, yeah.
Yeah, it's raining, so you know what I mean. A little tired, and just relaxing.
Yeah. Same. Thanks. Appreciate you taking some time today, though.
No problem.
Chat a bit about the mental side of stuff. I know we had to schedule a couple of times, but can't control hurricanes.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get started here. For those that may be unfamiliar with you and your career, maybe we'll spend 5-10 minutes here just creating context of the beginning of your MMA career and kind of what motivated you to get started, because I think it's one of the more dangerous sports in the world, right? You put your body on the line every single match, so there has to be some sort of motivation there besides money and fame and whatever that is.
Yeah, I'll go back to like kind of where kind of the roots started. Like I started wrestling in high school, my freshman year. Did it my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. I didn't do it my senior year, and I was kind of missing that aspect of competing. So when I got to college, I was kind of looking for something. I was like doing flag football, and then I had a friend that said, "Hey, it's funny. He's one of my good friends now. He's like, hey man, I fight," and I was like, "Wait a minute, you do what?" And because he was this real skinny guy, and like back then I weighed like 250 pounds. I was like lifting heavy weights, and I was like, "Oh man, like I don't fight it, and you see how big I am, you know." And he said, "Yeah, man, I do MMA." And I was like, "I'll believe it when I see it." And so I end up going to his fight in Augusta. And then I was like sitting in the audience, and he just like, he kicked this guy took him down and put him in a triangle. And then like, he just like beat him up. And I was like, hey man, I could do that.
Yeah. And, that seems kind of fun.
Yeah. And when you think about it, it's like crazy, like I just saw someone fighting, and I was like, I could do it. But what really interests me about the sport is just the, like wrestling, like you have a team and you prepare with your team. And it all kind of boils down to your preparation for that moment of when you and someone else step in that cage. So I kind of really like that aspect of, one-on-one and how hard did you prepare, and how hard did you put that hard work in to get to that moment and excel, or sometimes the fights don't go your way, but if you're learning, I don't think you're really losing. So that's kind of something I kind of try to instill in like the people that are coming up and the young guys in the gym. I try to, hey man, winning isn't everything. Winning is good, but if you're learning through every aspect, even in the losses, you're doing fine. And you shouldn't be doing this sport if you're just out there just for the fame, just for the glory. You really have to pride yourself on this aspect of learning a art. Like they say mixed martial arts. It's not just like pugilism. We're not just in there just like punching each other in the face and that's it. It's an art to it, and that's kind of the way I looked at it when I stepped in there. And for my first fight, like I took my first fight, it was like I think it was on a week notice or 2-week notice. But after that point, after feeling that feeling inside the ring, because it was in Florida, it was in 2011, so not that many organizations had cages at that time. So I fought in the ring, and after that,
that had to have been a huge, such a weird experience doing MMA with ropes around you, right?
Yeah. There's the videos online. Like I don't even know how many views on it, but it was against this guy named Matt Monk. And he was one of the touted guys, like I think he was like 5-0 or whatever. And so we were started, and like I hit him with something, and then he like rushed me, and then like my hand got caught up in the ring, and they had to like stop the match a little bit. But yeah, fighting in the ring is a little bit different than a cage.
Was that your first pro fight or your first fight ever, like amateur?
First fight amateur. My first pro fight was for Bellator back in 2015, I think. Yeah, 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. When you had lots to dissect there, of course, but more of one of the most recent things you said there, your first amateur fight, did you have this vision of being this far ahead in your career and being a pro MMA fighter when you think back to 2011 fighting in a ring? Did this ever seem possible to you?
Not really. You know what I mean? Like it's super funny because like before I even turned pro, you know, I had this idea of you know, just doing something, being great at something, because my father instilled in me and my brother that, hey, you know, what you do is what makes the person. So, you know, I mean, you really want to put your best foot forward in everything you do. You know, you don't want to half-ass it. You want to try your best. So I knew that I was going to do something and be good at something. I just didn't know what it was. And then, you know, MMA just kind of, you know,
it's exploded the past 10, 15 years, right? Like when you're getting in around 2011, that's like, I'm going to say the MMA was just starting to come up to what it is right now, right?
Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, I just kind of stuck with it, and you know, you're seeing the benefits of it, you know, like not to say like, hey, I'm super great and I'm like the best guy in the world, but you know, I'm definitely excelling at it, and I just, you know, I kind of attribute that to you know, having this the mindset of just doing your best. Because I think if you just, like a lot of people say, hey, you know, sometimes your best isn't good enough. But I think in terms of what's the word? Like things happen, like there's synergy, you know what I mean? Like the everything flows. So, you know, if you're doing something that you like and you're putting people in around you that are kind of in the same mindset, you kind of gravitate and move in this world towards things that kind of help you. Right. I was, you know, moving to Connecticut. That was a kind of not out of the blue, but it just kind of worked out.
Yeah. So from Florida, you moved from Florida to Connecticut, was it? Or
no, I moved from Georgia to Connecticut.
Georgia, sorry, so, yeah.
Yeah. So I graduated in 2013, 14. It's kind of iffy because I was missing a credit. I graduated. I was missing credit, so I didn't technically graduate, but I walked, and then I got my diploma in 2014. But I was working as a project manager for a roofing company, and I really wasn't fighting per se. You know what I mean? I was still training, wanted to fight. And then I got a call from a friend that I went to college with, and he was like, hey, man, this is this awesome company. You should work for them. And I was like, all right, you know what I mean? I can make more money doing that. And then they moved me to Connecticut. And moving to Connecticut, I ended up, you know, first I was with Hensel Gracie School, did all right. I made my first pro fight for Bellator. And then so happened that Nick Newell, he moved his gym like maybe like 2 miles away from the gym I was at. And I was like, hey, man, I really want to do this. Yeah. So you know, I was like, I'm going to make the move to Nick Newell. And it's just like,
I mean, if you're going to pick a guy to learn mental toughness from, that's the guy to choose, right?
Yeah. And I will never forget, you know, like, it's so surreal. Like now that I think about it, is because like probably a month before I even moved up to Connecticut, I was watching the World Series of Fighting, and Nick Newell was fighting, and I was like, hey, man, this guy's a fluke, you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think he can win or whatever. And he beat this guy, and I was like, oh, well, hey, some people get lucky. And then I started training with him, and I was like, you know, I kind of still had that in the back of my head, but you know, he beat me senseless, you know, and I was fighting at 185 pounds, probably weighing like 220. and I'm a big guy, and like he just like beat me up. And so I was like, okay, I mean, that was a kind of a humbling moment because, in my head at that point in time, I was like, hey man, I'm a big guy, I'm pretty good. And, I'm going against this guy that he has one arm and, all that jazz. But, but like I said before, how things kind of work out and you kind of put yourself in the same realm with people with the same mentality, and you kind of put that best foot forward and things kind of work out. Everything kind of worked out, and, I was in the right place at the right time, and I did the right thing at the right time. And it kind of, moved me in this direction. And now I'm here, So.
Working in roofing, I think you said, and starting to dabble into the fight game and stuff. What was kind of the messaging you were getting from people? I know obviously there's people that were cheering you on, but were there anybody kind of telling you not to do it or doubting you or stuff like that?
I'm sure there was people that are telling me, but like, I'm the type of guy that, hey, if there's someone that's not going with your dream, you kind of phase them out. I'm sure, like,
gently phase them out.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm pushing them away, but I gravitate towards people kind of like-minded individuals. And, I don't think it's conducive to the person if you're in an environment that doesn't vibe with you, or doesn't, not to say you like to get with people that are yes man and they're like, hey, do this. Hey, you should do this. You should do this. No, I mean, just in the same aspect that you need to have people that check you. Hey, is there something serious that you really want to do? But you should be around people that are kind of goal-oriented and have kind of the same mindset of, putting that best foot forward and doing what you can to excel. And that's what I kind of think I gravitate towards personally. Mm-hmm. And so, having those people around you, kind of, you rise with the cream, you rise to the top, and the people around you rise to the top. And so you're kind of like-minded and you're going in the same direction. So not to say like, hey, there's some people that are doubting you. There's people that are going to check you and say, hey, man, if this is something you really want to do, hey, you got to put your best foot forward, and you got to do you got to be honest to yourself. Hey, because you're going in there with people that are trying to take off your head, and you have to be ready for that,
Yeah. No, it's crazy, man. Because I mean, with all the MMA fighters I've talked to in this podcast so far, it's so interesting to hear them say how important that kind of team is to them, whether it's friends, families, coaches, training partners, whatever it is. And I think it's so interesting, especially for MMA fighters, because when you watch an MMA fight, you just see 1v1, fighter versus fighter. You don't see all of the hours of preparation that go in beforehand from the coaches, hours that you spend talking to training partners, friends, family, whatever. And it's just so interesting to hear that. And I think people need to I think they're starting to clue in by really try and bring home this message that it's not just the fighter you see in the ring, you see the whole team. It's almost team versus team, right? Because you're representing a team when you're in there pretty much.
Yeah, it definitely. And that's, that hits it on the head because, and I think once that idea is more mainstream, people will kind of have a better understanding of the sport, and they don't think of it more as a brutal, like these two meatheads or, these two girls that just don't really care about themselves, and they're just going in there trying to hurt each other. Because it's not like that, it's totally not like that. And it's the problem that comes along with it. It's a spectator sport. So, spectators are different from the athletes. So, when I look at a fight, I can look at it and I'm like, I can appreciate everything that's around it, everything that comes to that one moment. A spectator, they just see this moment and that's it, so.
And it's kind of funny how it always makes me chuckle when people, you can really tell they don't appreciate the sport when, say, it's a quote unquote boring fight and they start booing and be like, oh, why don't they just hit him or whatever? Why don't they just start striking? Like you said, it's not, this isn't backyard wrestling. This isn't, Kimbo Slice back in the day. This is mixed martial arts. Like there's an
Yeah.
art to it, right? They're not going in for a reason, because if they're going to go in, they're probably going to get their head popped off.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the more interesting quotes. So I have this little game, I guess, like to play in the podcast, where I have a collection of quotes, and then I get you to reflect on them. But I saw in your Instagram bio, you already have one of them in there, which is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I know you put the whole kind of Michael Scott tag in there.
Yeah.
I love The Office too, so I appreciate that. But I got to imagine that quote still holds some value to you throughout your career. So maybe just talk a bit about kind of what that quote means to you, and to what part of your career you think about, or you really start to reminisce about when you hear that quote.
Yeah, like like exactly what it says, because you can't, if you don't try, you would never succeed. Like there's no, like people say, hey, well, some people don't even try, and they make a lot of money, all this stuff, but some people are more fortunate than the others, and you can't discredit that. But for me personally, like putting the effort in to succeed, to kind of excel, means you're trying, and if you're trying and something doesn't work out right at that moment, you got to think, hey, maybe that moment wasn't right for what you're trying to do. And then you can learn, and then something else comes. I was listening to The Rock. He was saying something about how he was just trying to get in the NFL, and he was playing with the Canadian League.
Yep.
And so after his first Canadian League game, he got cut. And, he was like at that moment, he thought like everything was over. But then he reflected on it, and it was like, hey, maybe, well, definitely that wasn't what was supposed to happen, because, you look at him now.
Yeah.
So, that if you don't try, you will never succeed. And if you try and you fail, you learn and you grow. And that's something that, I like, especially as an amateur, I was like, hey man, my mentality as an amateur is, as you can see, is I have like 14 fights as an amateur, which is kind of high for most people nowadays. Yeah. But it's just like, hey, I want to try everything. And I might fail, but I'm trying to do what I can to learn and improve. So when I go pro, it's not going to be, hey, I don't want to learn on the big stage and make a mistake. And when you make a mistake on the big stage, it's way different than making a mistake as an amateur. So these shots that you kind of regret, or you don't, like the shots you don't take, you're not gonna regret, but you will never learn. That's right. That's one of the big things that I kind of take from that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole cliche of like, it's such a cliche, but it's like, you don't want to be 90 years old on your deathbed and thinking what if about anything. Right. And I think that's hard for people in the moment, because they may think they're going to fail at something, but then they start getting in their head, like they'd rather not fail at something than, like, they would rather not fail something than actually fail at it. Like they'd rather not try than try and fail. But when you look at it from like a healthy mindset perspective, or a growth mindset perspective, like you talked about this for the past 20 minutes, it's in the failures and it's in the mistakes is where you grow. Like nobody, and I think that another thing I always bring up with a lot of the coaches, or a lot of the kids that I coach with, is they look at somebody, say for a hockey player, they look at somebody like Sidney Crosby, or an MMA, perfect example is Khabib, and perfect record, whatever, Stanley Cup wins for Crosby, whatever it is, and they only see the good. They don't see the bad that goes on. Like they're failing still day to day. They could fail sometimes in practice, make a mistake in a game or whatever. Nobody's perfect. It's just it's in those mistakes and in those failures where somebody learns. And if you never fail, you never learn, and you never get better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I try to teach my like the kids that are coming up. Like we have this Taekwondo guy. He had a fight recently that he lost, but I was like, hey man, did you like, you're not losing if you learn,
Right.
Like if you take from this moment, like what you learned, it's not a loss, So, that's what I kind of like.
Yeah.
If you kind of have that mindset, like I think the world would be a better place because like everybody's like has that mentality. Hey, I mean, I got to win everything. I got to win everything. And that's where you see the whole, like toxic masculinity. I think that's a very toxic thought to say I must win at everything, like saying being good at it is good. Being proficient at it is great, but you can't win everything. You
Right.
can't have everything. So if you look at it in that aspect, if you're learning, you're growing, and if you win, you move on.
Right.
So like I would rather grow and be great than win and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to imagine for some people thinking of it like in an athletic perspective, if you're winning all the time, you might not be challenging yourself enough. So it's maybe time to check yourself. Unless, of course, like you're somebody like could be where he's fighting at the highest of the highest levels, right? So he's obviously challenging himself. But when you think of like, say, an amateur fighter goes like 20-0 and they feel on top of the world and everything, like all the power to them, but they're probably not challenging themselves. It's probably time to take that next step up. They're probably not improving in those 20 wins because it's just a walk in the park, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I want to chat a bit about, you mentioned it a bit earlier, but your pro debut in Bellator, and I know it didn't go the way that you kind of wanted it to, but I think that's a perfect example of learning from your mistakes and your failures. So just walk me through a bit post-fight, what was going through your head and how you're able to pick yourself back up. Because I think I remember seeing that you came back and you won your next fight after that. So I know I think for a lot of people, when they make their debut in something, whatever it is, athletics or not, and it doesn't go the way they envisioned it, I think for a lot of people, their first instinct is to shut down and to not try again. Obviously, you didn't do that. So just walk me through your mentality after that fight.
Yeah. So like immediately after that, it was, hey, I was definitely sad, definitely upset because, I put all this effort into it and it didn't really pan out the way I wanted it to. But, like I said before, I want to piggyback to what I said before, how kind of, if you put yourself in the realm of things kind of work out and things kind of flow the way you want it to. So then I'll go back to my mindset after that. But so I was, after the fight, I was upset. I was kind of mad at myself because, I felt that, hey, I had the upper hand and then I just got kind of overzealous. I should have did this move. I saw it, but I didn't. So, you have this typical self ridicule.
Yeah, you're beating yourself up.
Yeah, I'm beating myself up. And so, I decided to like, hey, get my clothes on and just walk around the arena, just kind of cool off. And as I was walking around the arena, guess who's kind of walking the opposite way? Nick Newell. Yeah. So he decided before I even knew him, before I even met him, he was in the arena and he was like, "Hey man, you did a really good job." And I forget what he said. I think he said like, "Hey, you're very promising." And then I was like,
"That's gonna mean a lot." Yeah.
Yeah. So that means a lot. So like what my thing is so like I have this. My main thing is just my cardio. Like if my cardio is good, like I'm the best person in the world. I'm the I could do anything. But I was kind of doubting myself just because like all of my wins up to that point were the first round victories. I had a couple that lasted a little bit longer, but hey, I won all my fights in the first round. So going to the second round, it was kind of like, hey, you need to kind of focus yourself, or if you don't focus yourself, you're gonna lose. That's the kind of mentality I had up to I think it was like my third pro fight. Then was it third pro? I can't remember, but
one next.
Well, I know, but so my mentality it wasn't to just stop doing what I was doing, to stop because I reached the roadblock. It was kind of re-navigate, kind of figure out what was up, what was wrong, and kind of fix it. And that's what a lot of people, because you see this sometimes when you got younger guys that were good, that were winning, and then they lose. They're like, shoot, I messed up, and they don't go to kind of why they messed up or how can they improve. They just kind of wash it away and say, okay, and then they go back to doing what they're doing. And they might be successful. They might, but and once you have to assess your faults. If you don't assess your faults, you will fail again, no matter what. It's kind of my mentality. Because like it's this self-assessment. I'm a kind of big, I don't know if you know Eric Thomas, the motivational speaker, but he says, the people that fail to self-assess fail to, like it's kind of like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, type thing. So, that's kind of the way I looked at it at that moment is, hey, I need to figure out what's up. And the main thing was my cardio. Once I had my cardio intact and I was like, hey, this is what I need to do. I just need to get tired. I just need to get tired when I train, because that was the biggest thing. Like I not to say I didn't get tired, but tired to the point of like, hey man, I can't get off the floor because I'm so tired. And I have to keep pushing and get past that. And then, Nick opened a gym up the street, like probably, I think it was like maybe 2 months after that. And I was like, hey man, I got to make the move. I have to make the move. I have to do this for my career because I want to excel. I want to get better and I want to do great things. And did that and never looked back since.
Yeah. It's I like how you mentioned you kind of get used to the cardio and getting used to being tired. And I think one of the most important methods for an athlete to grow and to get better is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like you need to be comfortable in those situations where you're on the verge of passing out, or being comfortable in those positions where, say, somebody's on top of you in full guard or whatever it is, right? When you train in those uncomfortable positions in practice, when you start to experience them in a fight or in another sports case, in a game or a match, whatever it is, then you kind of already been through before, and it seems a lot more. I guess you're more comfortable, as the quote says, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like it's what's my wife's here? Like, she hates my. Let me see. I'm there. You got me.
There you go. You're good.
Sorry, my low battery thing's turned on. But what's the one that I say? The quote that I use a lot.
Not the stick?
No, not the stick. The
pencil? The broom?
No, not that. Well, no. But I have a phrase about being thriving in the uncomfortable. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned self-assessment too, because not only is self-assessment, I think, important for, in your case, during the match, but self-assessment is something that you can do every day, whether it's practice or just in your personal life, whatever it is. I think the more people self-assess, the more they see things they do well, the more they see things they do unwell, and they're just better able to improve from that. Do you do self-assessment like during practice or throughout the week or anything, or do you kind of just save it for the matches?
I try to do it, as often as possible. Like being human, it's not. You're not kind of wired to like kind of sit down and look at your faults and try to, improve them. Cause, like it's just human nature. But like, when I kind of feel in myself, hey, something's up. What's wrong? What am I doing? Like I kind of, sit down and think about it. I try to do it as often as possible. It's not like I don't have like a regimen where I do it. I should do it a regimen, and kind of make it more of a repetition and kind of a schedule. But it's just when I kind of feel that something's off and I really need to kind of focus more, like I'll for instance, I'll speak about most recent is so like me, like I'm probably one of the bigger guys at my gym, and so they typically, when someone has a fight or someone has a new opponent, I'm the one that kind of steps in as hey, this is, they need a particular body that is like orthodox. I fight southpaw. So, you know, I mean, I'm not afraid to go in there and be out of my comfort zone just to you know, fight them in a orthodox stance. So, you know, I'll go in there, and one of the things was like, hey man, like my feet aren't really feeling right underneath me. You know, I mean, that was like the biggest thing. I was like, hey man, I'm not moving like I should, because southpaw, like I'm like a bee. I can float like a bee, and, you know, sting like a, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Yeah. Sorry, I messed that up totally. But you know, I feel fluid, but when I'm in orthodox, I'm like, man, you know, I still can strike. I still got my moves, but I'm not really feeling that fluid like I do southpaw. So my self-assessment was, hey, I gotta pick up my footwork drills. I gotta pick up the jump rope a little more. I gotta do you know, a little bit more coordination in this other stance, so I can kind of pick up that slack that it's missing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that was the kind of the most recent self-assessment that I did as a fighter. So.
Yeah. No, it definitely is so important. One of the last things here I wanted to chat with you a bit about before we wrap this up is the recent birth of your daughter. Because I read in a couple of articles that kind of lit a new fire under you. So just walk me through a bit about that of what exactly extra motivation you were feeling once she was born.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like it's crazy because, you know, you get this little thing and it's like you love it, but you like, hey man, I just literally just met you like 2 months ago, you know, like it's like it's all this love, and it's kind of crazy how you know, it generates this feeling because, you know, I mean, my wife will tell you, I'm not the lovey-dovey, you know, like sentimental guy, you know, like she thinks I'm an emotional robot. But you know, this has kind of, you know, pulled a cover off, and, you know, I mean, I'm a little bit more gentle. I'm a little bit more sentimental, and, you know, just when I fight, it's kind of, you know, like I have my wife in my back of my mind, and I have my daughter. You know what I mean? Why am I putting this work in? Why am I kind of sacrificing, you know, this time that I could spend with them? But I'm doing it because, you know, I want to provide more than I am now. Mm-hmm. You know, in fighting, fighting allows me to provide more than I'm providing now. And so, you know, I kind of put those extra hours in and put that extra hard work in. And, you know, when I'm down and I shoot that shot and someone sprawls them and they're heavy, and I'm like, man, this sucks. You know, they just pop in my head, and I'm like, okay, all right, let me take this guy down. I got to do some other stuff. I can't just sit here. And, you know, it's just like, it's kind of hard to explain. You know, like people that have like children, or, you know, or like, cause I've been doing it since 2011, and, you know, I had this certain mindset, and now it kind of shifts to not just me, but us. And you know, like I'm extremely motivated, you know, I mean, I want to excel more. I want to do more. And it's kind of, you know, it's a really cool experience, you know, like I was watching the Road to the UFC with Daniel Cormier. And one of his biggest things he was saying, you know, after the fight was, hey, I don't want to be known as DC. I want to be known as Daniel Cormier's crazy father. You know, like, so like, that was an interesting moment that I was like, kind of resonated, you know, not with the aspect of, hey, you know, I'm going to be fighting until I'm 41 years old, but that, hey, you put all this work in for your family. And then now you get that point where like all this hard work kind of boils down to this one moment. And then your life changes to your focus. And, you know, I mean, that's ultimately when I don't want to fight for, you know, for like, I probably got like 5 more years in me of doing this, but I want to kind of put all the effort I can for my family now. And then once I'm done with this, like we can just, you know, reap the benefits of all this hard work that I put in.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And it's so nice to hear kind of that that mentality that you have now. And I got to imagine that whether you're a fighter or you're still a roofer, whatever your occupation is, that's I guess one of the most unique things of being a parent is it now becomes not only helping to provide for your family and your child and whatever, but also being a role model and showing them that these things can be done, right? Like, there's doubters for everybody. And like, it would be, I guess, a bit, I don't even know the word, hypocritical, I guess, for somebody to preach all these things, but then not show them to their daughter or their son, right? Like, you kind of have to be the role model. And it's just so interesting and so nice to kind of hear almost like a second wind of breath, I guess, and you like rejuvenated, lit the fire under you again. It's so nice to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that like I want to leave, like you can quote this. My mom actually tells me this, like like I talk to her. I try to talk to her more frequently. Like, she lives back in Georgia, but she has this phrase, and it stuck with me. Like, I can remember when I was like 5 years old when she told me. We were in she was coming from work. Well, she drove to work on the weekend. She had to pick something up. And she was sitting with me in the car, and she said, "If it is to be, it's up to me." And that's one of the key phrases that I kind of live by. And, that's definitely one thing that I want to pass down to my daughter is, if it is to be, it's up to me. So, that to me, what that means is you put your best foot forward, you do what you can. And if it is to be, then it will happen. And so, that's one of the kind of the things that I kind of hold to my heart. And
it's a beautiful quote. And to kind of to tie it into the beginning of this podcast, you don't know if it is to be unless you don't take that shot, right? You miss hyper shots you don't take. If you don't take the shot, you don't know. So might as well take it. And like you said, even if you fail, it's still a learning experience as long as you have that mindset of from every failure, there's a learning experience and I'll just get better and better. And eventually you can strike out 100 times, but that just gets you closer to the next one that goes right?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Perfect. Awesome, man. Anyways, don't want to take up too much of your time, but again, appreciate you coming on and chatting a bit about your mentality. I know your most recent fight, Bellator, got called off. That must have been like early March, was it? Middle March?
Yeah, March 13th.
Yeah, so that was like right when everything was going on. So I know you just missed getting that fight in with the whole coronavirus thing, but I'm excited to see you fight again, man. Huge fan of yours, and I'll be cheering for you for sure and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Take care, dude.
All right, peace.